My name is Dagmara Bożek-Andryszczak, and today I'm going to tell you something about the polar bears, some interesting facts, the way of adaptation to the frozen Arctic climate. But to start with, I would like to ask you another question, because it's my first lesson in EDU-ARCTIC project, and I would like to know from what countries and from what cities are you. So please, using a chat, and write me the name of your city and the country. I think it would be interesting as well for the others that are participating in our lessons today. Okay, we have participants from Romania, from Poland. Anybody? I'm from Poland, from Kraków. Kraków is a city in the south of Poland, but today we'll be talking about not Poland, not Romania, not the European countries, but we will focus on the Arctic, the natural habitat of the polar bear. Okay, we have another participant from Bulgaria. Wow, that's great. Okay, it's very nice to have all of you here. I'm really glad that you decided to participate in my lesson, and I think that we can start our presentation. So, to start with, we should define what Arctic really is. It's the area around the North Pole. On the right side, there is a map where you can see the Arctic region. It's marked with the blue color. It's not only the area of the Arctic Ocean, but as well the islands like Greenland, Iceland, and the Arctic territory of some countries like Canada, Denmark, or Russia, or Norway, of course. The polar bears are in separated populations, and the scientists are concerned that we have 19 populations nowadays. And to sum up, today on the Earth we have from 22 to 31,000 of polar bear around the world. Of course, they are only in the Arctic region. And there is a map of the Svalbard archipelago, and the biggest island that belongs to that archipelago, it's the Spitsbergen. I would like to focus on that region today because I worked for Polish Polar Station Horsund on Spitsbergen for 1 year, the whole year. I was on wintering, and I know maybe not very well, but the southern part of the Spitsbergen, and had an opportunity to meet some polar bears in the area of the station. But the most important now is to focus on that map, because with those blue arrows we have marked the directions of polar bears. That's why we know which way they are choosing to migrate around the Barents Sea area, Barents Sea region. And please remember that arrows near the southern part of the island, because it will be very important for us in the next part of our presentation. But now, another fact, like the Latin name for the polar bear is Ursus maritimus, which means that the animal is very dependent on sea ice. It means that it might be more often observed on sea area or coastal area than on land. But sometimes it may happen, and we will discuss it. The Barents Sea population that we are particularly interested in, it is about from 2.5 to 3,000 polar bears, and it's stable. It's very important information because the populations of the polar bears are changing due to the climate change, for example, the human activity, the pollution of the environment. So the information that that particular population is stable is very important, and we are glad of it. As are the scientists that are doing some researches concerning polar bears' natural habitat. Family Ursidae from Latin, which means the bear family. It's good to know what kind of relatives does our main main character of the presentation has. It's a brown bear and giant panda. I know that you know well that animals. Of course, we know that they have a different fur color. They live in different parts of the world, but also there is one important differences between them, because polar bear eats mainly meat. It's carnivorous animals. It is hunting for seals. The diet of the brown bear, it's a little bit different, because it eats not only the meat but the plants as well. And the giant panda, we know that it's a very kind and sweet animal, and it only eats plants. But we should remember that all of those three species belongs to one family, the bear family, in Latin Ursidae. It's a very interesting photo taken on Spitsbergen, and I would like you to ask what's the reason for taking the weapons when we are outside. Come on. Oh yes, to defend. Okay, that's right, because of the bears. You are absolutely right. Or to hunt. Oh, no. Hunting is forbidden because the polar bears in Norway are protected. But yes, to defend from the polar bears. And my second question is it do we have to take a gun when we are going outside, or it is optional? How do you think? Okay. I'm not so sure, but probably you have to take it. Yes, that's right. Okay, so the photo was taken on Spitsbergen. It's me on the right, and on the left my husband. We spent together the whole year in the Arctic, wintering in Polish polar station Horsund. And as you can see, all of us have guns. And on Svalbard archipelago, you are obliged to have a gun when you are going outside. You have to. It's not optional, because there is a law and you have to obey it. And of course, it's not like this that you are going to Spitsbergen, to Svalbard, go to the governor's office and say, hello, it's me, I would like to work on Spitsbergen, and I would like to go to the field, please give me a weapon. No, it doesn't work like that, because you have to take part in a special shooting training or have an exam, because it's important to have a permission, to have a document that you are allowed to have a gun with you and you really know what to do with it. For example, every employee that is going to work at Polar Polish Station Horsund, before the leaving Poland, is obliged to participate in a special training session, and in the end we have a special exam. You have to, of course, pass the exam, and only after that you receive the permission and you can go to the Svalbard. Of course, the permission is one thing, and the second thing is to have a permission from your doctor, because it's important to have a good vision or not to have some vision diseases, because it may be an obstacle to get a job in the Arctic, because you have to be able to protect yourself against the polar bear, because they are dangerous. And on the left side, you have a very interesting photo. It's a photo near the Longyearbyen, and there is a special sign on the road. I think that there are not so many places on the earth where you can find it, but on Svalbard, yes, it's possible that polar bears are around, and you have to be careful. Okay, let's go to the another slide. There we have the snowmobiles. The snowmobiles are the very important equipment using by the employees of Polish Polar Station Horsund. They help us to do some researches, go to the field, go for some trips, to transport cargo, and so on. But the average speed of the snowmobiles in the field is approximately 100 kilometers per hour. Of course, it depends on the driver. If you are brave enough or have a good knowledge how to behave in the field, you can go faster. If you are not self-confident, you can be more slower a little bit. Okay, but you have to remember that polar bears are not so fast as your snowmobile. Polar bears are able to sprint, but for a very short period of time, and they can reach the 40 kilometers per hour. But it's his maximum speed. And when the animals in the field and they hear the sound of working engine of the small snowmobiles, they might be scary, and they will be run away as fast as they can. So when they will sprint for a longer time, their body might be overheated, and in the result, they might even die. So every person that uses the snowmobiles is warned that when he or she spots the polar bear in the field, it's better to turn off the engine or just drive slower, or just try to avoid somehow the meeting with the polar bear, not to scare that animal. Yes, there we have the map, and I wanted you to remember the first map with the direction of the polar bears. And now I have a question for you, because in Polish Polar Station Horsund we have dogs. What is the role of the dogs at that station? How do you think? Oh yes, very good answer. Yes, that's right, of course. On the right side, yes, exactly. Brilliant. On the right side, we have the map of the Spitsbergen, and as you, I hope, remember, the southern part of the island is visited by the polar bears. If you will think about those blue arrows on the first map, it's the place regularly visited by the polar bears. So the role of the dogs is to protect the people that are working at the station, and of course they are very good and or best friends, which is very helpful, especially during the polar night, when we feel alone, we feel not good every day. So having two friends like the dogs around the station is a very good idea. And here we have the result with meeting the polar bear and the human. On the left side, we have the female polar bear that is devastating the scientific equipment in the field near the Hell's Glacier. The photo was taken very close to the Polish Polar Station. I think that that bear was curious. They have they had not bad intentions, but still, it was important to scare it away. The flare gun was used to do it. So on the second photo, you can see that the equipment is okay, and the bear is running away or just walking, because it ran not so often as we should expect. Okay, it's my favorite photo because when I'm watching it, I thinking all the time with our meetings with the polar bears in the fields, especially. Well, because polar bears have, as the human do, their emotions as well. So they might be angry or they might be curious. I observed the two types of the polar bears. I think that they can react in so many ways, but those two types was observed by me. The angry one type is very dangerous for the human, because when the polar bear is hungry or when it is ill, it might be very aggressive, very angry, and might attack a human. So it's better not to meet with that type of the polar bear. And the second one is my favorite. It's the curious one. The polar bear is very interested in everything around the station. It would like to touch everything, lick everything. And even it might have wanted to play with the dogs. It was not during our wintering, but there is a story about the dog from the Polish Polar Station that was playing with small polar bear. The end of that play was successful. Nobody was hurt, so that was a very good ending. But when we are a human and we have a unique opportunity to meet the polar bear, the reactions might be a little bit different. If you meet polar bear in the field, you are terrified. I think you are even very terrified, because it's very strong impression. Even if you very good know what to do, even if you have the flare gun, the weapon, even if you are a bigger group of people, your legs are shaking, and for the first time, you have no idea what to do. That's the first one. And of course, when you are in the field. But if you are in the base, it's very comfortable situation, because you can observe, watch, amaze the polar bear that is going around the station. So it's very good point of view, and I recommend it not to meet the polar bear in the field. And how do you think, if you will imagine the situation that you are meeting with the polar bear, what will you feel? Maybe you will have some impression about this. Will you be happy or terrified or curious? I think that it's dependent on if you like the polar bears or not, but how do you think? Would you like to see the polar bear in his natural habitat? Oh, nobody would like to see the polar bear? I can't believe this. Okay. Oh, yes, if they are far, yes, that's right. If it is far, observing the polar bear is very comfortable and very good activity, I think. Yes, curious, terrified, happy in the same time. I think that in such unique meetings, you might have a lot of emotions in the one particular moment. Okay, here we go. So the next slide is about ways of adaptation. It's the second part of our presentation that was in the description of our lesson, because it is very important that those animals evolve to survive in the cold and unfriendly Arctic climate. So the first one is still hunting. It's the name for the special way of hunting. The polar bear might waiting for a very long period of time for the seal that is covered under the sea ice. And it is waiting, and when we have the moment when the seal is emerging above the surface, the polar bears attacks it and eat after furthermore, of course. To eat the seal or to hunt for a seal, the polar bear is standing on his hind legs and raise his paws up, and after that push his prey, push the seal to smash it. It's maybe not so easy and nice situation, but it looks like this. I'm sorry. But it's very important that our animal has very well developed sense of smell. It can smell the seal in the distance of 30 kilometers. That's impressive. When there is a lack of food, the polar bear has a special fat reserves that help him to survive for up to 9 months eating nothing. So it's also very important adaptation. When there are some polar bears living near the villages, the cities, they can go to the garbage dumps to eat waste left by people. Of course, it causes many conflicts with the people, but well, it will be also a problem. Not only the attacking of the polar bears to people, but also the meeting between people and the polar bears near the garbage dumps. The berries. How do you think? The polar bear is a carnivorous animal, which means that it eats mainly meat, but is it possible that it can eat plants like berries as well? How do you think? Is it possible that in the diet of the polar bear might be plants? Okay, we have first answer, yes. Possible, okay. How about the rest? I think yes. Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. Yes, you're right, but it's a very rare situation, and it's not, we have maybe not so much knowledge about this one, but it might be, it's hypothesis, it might be a kind of an adaptation to the climate, because as we know, from the poops, I'm not so, to be honest, I don't know, because maybe there are some researchers and the scientists are investigating this, but I'm not sure, and I don't have any knowledge about this one. But about the berries, we know from the special system of monitoring that are used to investigate the natural habitat of the polar bears. Because the first project is carried out by Norwegian Polar Institute from Tromsø, from Norway, and they have special GPS tracking collars that are put into the animal's neck. That's why we know what kind of ways of migration do polar bears have. The first map that we have already seen was made thanks to those GPS tracking collars. It's the first one, but the scientists also use the cameras that are attached as well to that tracking collars to have a live view of the behaviors of the polar bears. And there is a project called Wildlife Cam, I think, and the scientists that are working at that project spotted a very interesting situation when the polar bear go inside the land, which is not very often in the case of that animals, and eats berries. It was the one situation. Maybe the examples are not. Maybe there are many examples of such a kind of behavior, but we know about one of it. It might be a way of adaptation because during the summer, polar bears have problems with hunting for seals due to lack of the sea ice. Okay, how you can put the GPS tracking collars to polar bears? It's very difficult, but the scientists know how to do it. They use special darts that are shot towards the polar bear, and it immobilizes the polar bear for a few hours. So that's why the scientists can access it and do some and check if the animal is ill or it's healthy, how is the condition of the animal, and and after that they put a collar on the neck. Maybe giving berries to the polar bears is not so safe idea, but you know, maybe there will be a volunteer to do it. Okay, and it's interesting that only the female polar bears have the GPS tracking collars attached to their necks because their neck is much more thinner than in male polar bear case. So we know the what does the migration of the female polar bears mainly look like. Okay, another ways of adaptation, the feet. The feet, of course, they are big, large, very white, covered with fur, and the claws that are sharp. And thanks to it, the polar bear does not slip over the icy surface or the surface covered with thick layer of snow. It has 2 layers of fur, which is very comfortable and makes a very good insulation for the animal. It means that it can keep the warm even if the outside temperature is very low. It has also small ears, not to lose so many warmth of the body because of the strong cold climate. Another thing is long face. Face in a polar bear's case is called muzzle, but I think it might be a difficult word for you. I will write it. It's muzzle, the face of the animal, and the neck. It's very long because it helps the polar bear to hunt for seals. The seals are hidden very often under the thick layer of snow, the thick layer of the sea ice, and they make special holes to breathe. So thanks to the long neck, polar bear can put his head into that hole and hunt for seals without going into the water. Cubs means small polar bears are born between January and February, and it's also the kind of adaptation because in the September the pregnant female is making a special den in the snowbank. In that snowbank, she is a state of quasi-hibernation because it's not a real hibernation for a few months. And in the beginning of the new year, it gives a birth to her cubs. But the cubs stay with the warm den for a few another months, and in April or in May they leave the den with their mother and look for food. So if they leave the den in the spring, they have bigger chance to survive. If they will do it in winter, it will be impossible, I think. Okay, and some of you have written me via the chat that we have weapons on the Svalbard archipelago to hunt for the polar bears. No, because Norway is one of the countries that have the strongest restrictions concerning the hunting for the polar bears. You are not allowed to hunt for the polar bear in Norway. Of course, if you would like to protect yourself from the polar bear, you can do it, but only in this case. So the countries that have their territories in the Arctic area are taking up many activities to protect the polar bears, and the first important document that was signed in 1973 was the Agreement on the Conservation of Polar Bears, and it was signed by 5 countries, by Canada, Denmark, Norway, Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, which means Russia, and the United States of America. Okay, so we just go successfully to the end of our presentation. You have on the left very interesting photo of the polar bear. It was taken on Spitsbergen, and it's real. It's not artificial polar bear. That was a very funny situation because that was a curious type of the polar bear. He was passing by a small wooden hut, a small wooden house where my 3 colleagues were staying for a couple of days to do some researches on Verenshield Glacier, and it was so curious that it decided to look through the window inside the house. And in the house were 2 of my colleagues. They were, of course, terrified, but they had a camera as well. So they decided to take some pictures, because maybe that was the last chance to do it and to have that beautiful pics of the polar bear. So when the photographic session was over, the polar bear walked away and everybody was happy. The polar bear was not hurt and my colleagues were a little bit stressed, but they had beautiful pictures. So it's everything that I prepared for you.